Hi, everybody. Welcome to Winsight Live. I'm Jon Springer in New York, and I'm with Kat Martin, content director of Winsight Grocery Business, Jenn Strailey, senior editor of Winsight Grocery Business, and in Chicago, Brett Dworsky, associate editor at CSP. And we're here, as always, with Phil Lempert, the supermarket guru. Phil, in New York here, we're at phase one reopening of COVID. The cases and the new cases are way down, which is great news. We can kind of go on to a little business as usual here. That means construction, manufacturing, and curbside retail starting. Restaurants still a few weeks away, probably early July. How are things where you are?
Well, it's interesting. In Southern California, our cases are actually increasing, not decreasing. And that's even before the impact of all the protests that we've seen over the past couple weeks. But what I love, and we were talking about it earlier, Santa Monica, as everybody knows, got hit hard by a lot of looting and so on. So a lot of stores are all boarded up. But a lot of the local artists, especially from Venice, which is adjacent to Santa Monica, have been very industrious. They're going out there and they're painting beautiful murals on all the plywood that's on these boarded up stores, and it's really a sight to be seen. In fact, I'll take some pictures and share them on Thursday. But I love it, and in fact, in some cases, I hope the stores don't reopen. Because I want that artwork to be up there. But talking about store closures, and I don't know if you all saw this, but from Coresight, sorry about that, research, they estimate that U.S. retail will see between 20,000 and 25,000 store closures in 2020. They anticipate that approximately 55 to 60% of all store closures will be mall-based. What they also found is they had the bankruptcies listed in January. Both Fairway Market and Lucky's Market filed bankruptcy. In March, Dean and DeLuca filed bankruptcy, and I hadn't heard about Dean and DeLuca. I was very, surprised to hear about that. Also, some good news, not to take Jen's thunder away, because she'll end it with some good news. But Hy-Vee is donating $1 million and 1 million volunteer hours to organizations that support racial unity and equality. I think we also saw that Walmart is putting together a fund of $100 million to fund racial equality at Walmart, and doing a whole bunch of programs. But I guess what I'd really like to get everybody's take on is, I'm getting, and you probably are too, a whole bunch of press releases about new technologies that that monitor social distancing. So you can put an app on your iPhone or Droid or whatever, and if you're too close to somebody else, it'll beep. I mean, seriously? What do you guys think about that?
It's funny. The location tracking is very useful for retail, and there's a number of technologies and use cases for it that we're seeing out there. You're right. The press releases have been flying in. But when you were talking about that, I was thinking about, I don't know if you guys get your Google Maps monthly report, and it shows where I've gone in the last month. I haven't gone anywhere.
Well, what's interesting, Jon, Google Maps, they just had an announcement that what they're doing is they're going to be upgrading, I think it's this week, and they're going to be showing store closures and limited hours of stores and so on Google Maps, as well as, stores that are boarded up and stuff.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that, obviously.
So, yeah, I know I had sent one of the releases to Jon yesterday, I believe it was, and I understand why retailers might use this or consumers might use this, but I'm like, it just triggers my big brother. I'm like, oh, this is Big Brother. We're way intruding into what we're doing. But as Jon mentioned, our phones already track us and already know where we are all the time anyway. So this maybe is putting that to at least some good use in the interim. I know when I was in South Africa last summer, my cousin sent me, I'd asked him where we were on a certain day, and he's like, oh, here, my Google Map sent me this, and it literally showed our whole route through where we went.
So, we don't have to have this conversation about privacy anymore, because we have none.
Right, it's gone.
So Jen, what do you think about this app that beeps if you get too close to somebody else?
That sounds like bad news. My car does that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not even, I'm not driving into anything. Why are you
Right.
yelling at me?
Right. I have the exact same thing. And it's interesting here in the office, on the few occasions that I actually, have to drive to the office because I've got to carry something, big and heavy or something. Coming out of the office garage, and it's a very wide driveway, it beeps. It beeps.
Mhm.
And I'm saying, I see in front of me, I see on the sides. Why are you beeping? So, Brett, you don't have to worry about that because you just, you're in Chicago with Kat. You guys don't have to deal with cars.
I mean, I still have a vehicle. It comes in handy when you go to the grocery store and you have tons of food to bring back. But
Grocery store? I thought you buy everything at only C stores.
that is false. That is false.
Oh my God. I can't believe that.
But to answer your question about the beeping mechanism, I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures. In convenience stores and in grocery stores alike, there's social distancing markers on the ground everywhere I see, and those definitely help and encourage people to keep their distance from each other. And I think this beeping mechanism, although it might be super annoying at first to some people and might catch folks off guard, if it gets the job done and keeps people and healthy, that's the priority.
And talking about that technology, going to our Facebook page, Dave Foreman just wrote, I thought some plants, food plants obviously, were issuing wristbands for workers that do the same thing. See, I think, Dave, thanks for adding that. I think that that's a great use of the technology. And we look across the country at all the plant closures, whether it's, Charmin, because those workers are too close, or whether it's meat packing or poultry packing facilities. I mean, I think that's a really great use of that technology. So, Dave, thanks for adding that. And also to all of our viewers, please add your comments to us on Facebook Live, on Winsight Grocery Business, CSP Facebook Live, and Supermarket Guru Facebook Live. We'll take all of your comments and questions. Love to have you interchange with us. So John, let's talk about Walmart being a winner in grocery. What's up with that?
Yeah, Kantar Retail did a study, their Shopperscape study. I think that was completed in April, just released recently. That talked about the online grocery shopping, and 48% of U.S. customers who shop for online groceries shopped at Walmart in the last 6 months.
Wow.
That's much better than either Amazon or Kroger, according to those that they were polled. And not only that, they were, 32% were using it more often than they used to, and 11% of the customers were using it exclusively. That's all really great news for Walmart, which has been trying for a long time to get their customers into the habit of buying groceries there, because that drives their regular trips there. You start buying things online, you start buying other things there. You're going to throw a TV in with your order, those kinds of things.
Give me a pizza and a TV. Yeah.
It makes so much sense for Walmart to get into e-commerce through grocery, because it kind of opens up that rest of the world. It gets people into the habit of shopping with them. And you know what? It's working. COVID-19 was a big deal for them. They, while Amazon and some of the other competitors were reducing their availabilities and everything else, Walmart was extending it. They went and hired 100,000 employees, introduced this express service, which was a little controversial, but apparently it's all been to the good for them. And so that's one perspective on it. The COVID's been good for all food retailers. It's a question of degrees at this point. How much better for this company than that? And in terms of Walmart trying to chart its own course as a omnichannel retailer, has been great for them.
So at the same time that we're seeing that great news about Walmart, Instacart has decided to expand beyond grocery to other retailers as well, and also very controversial. What I saw that Instacart is doing is they've now added another layer to the app. That what they're finding is people are putting up big tips to get their order being fulfilled quickly in their fast and flexible site or feature. But then what's happening is people, after they get the order, are changing the tip. They're downgrading the tip, which I think is just horrible. So now if you actually downgrade the tip, what Instacart is doing is you've got to add a comment of why you're downgrading the tip. I'm not sure that, that's going to fly, but I think that the next step for Instacart is going to be, once you put in that tip, you're stuck with it. You're not going to be able to, revise that tip downward, because you think about all these people, especially during the demonstrations and so on, that really, went out of their way to give people groceries, and then to have some idiot, I have a better word than that, downgrade the tip. That's just not nice or fair. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, and I also think that I think they give them 24 hours to change their tip amount, which I also think is way too long. I mean, you either know right away or if they deserve the tip or if they don't. So I think even giving consumers that 24-hour period to change their tip is a disservice to the people who have delivered their groceries.
Yeah, Brett, you're nodding your head. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Kat. The 24 hours is pretty insane. Like you'd think, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes top. Like you get your food, you interact with the person giving you your food, and and you see in what condition and state the food is. I mean, within 10 minutes after receiving it what it is. So yeah, that time is just really insane. But these delivery drivers are during a pandemic, risking their well-being to make money for themselves, but to bring you your food. So it's really important to tip well and to be empathetic and conscious of these folks.
So Jen, how much do you tip Instacart?
I have never used Instacart.
You've never used Instacart?
But I write a story about them at least once a week.
Right. Why have you never used Instacart? That's interesting to me.
Because, I'm really old school. When I've always lived in an urban area. Before the pandemic, I was a shop every day for what I'm going to eat that day kind of urban shopper. And so I'm just so used to picking out my own stuff. I guess I've questioned putting that in somebody else's hands, but I know that's incredibly
I know your dad works, I think, at a Kroger, right?
Correct.
So do you shop where your dad works?
I don't.
Why?
Just because he's in a different neighborhood than I am.
And you just don't want him going into your cart and saying, "Why are you buying that?"
No, I would, and certainly in all of this, my dad has, done some shopping for me because he's already there. So initially, why risk going out? But
so do you tip your dad?
My own personal Instacart.
Do you tip your dad?
I make him good meals from the food that he got me.
Okay, so let's keep on going. Kroger and Ocado. Who wants to talk about Kroger and Ocado?
Well, I can briefly, look, this is all part of the rollout that they said they were going to build 20 of these units in the U.S. Kroger it takes so long to build these things, at least 2 years from when they announced them, that, this news is coming out of an eyedropper. They announced the general region, and then they get a second boost when they announce the actual site. I think that's also when they kind of collect the government incentives to build there and all that stuff. So, I guess the headline on the last one is that the 3 units that they're building with Ocado are different sizes. The smallest one will be in, Michigan, the largest one in California, a medium-sized one in Portland. I think they were trying to say, hey, look, I don't mean Portland, I mean the Pacific Northwest. They haven't announced the city yet. This is to demonstrate that they are the flexibility. Sorry, the Hells Angels are riding by. The flexibility of the
New York.
The Ocado system, where they've got a reputation that these things are enormous and they're going to have to haul food 100 miles in order to do this. While they're saying, no, we can do smaller facilities. we can do it in combination with other facilities and get everybody groceries. Again, for Kroger, they see a superior financial model for online order and fulfillment coming. So this is part of that.
And Brett, let's talk about convenience stores and lunch. What's going on there that's new and exciting?
Sure. So exciting is a hard word to say at the moment because lunch is actually underperforming in convenience stores compared to other day parts. Less than a quarter, about 21% of convenience store operators said that they expect lunch to provide most of their food service growth in 2020, which was lower than both breakfast and dinner, which both dinner was at nearly a quarter at 23% and breakfast was beyond 30%. So expectations for lunch in general are kind of down. So this has sparked the need for us, for CSP, to speak to some folks and provide some insight on how operators can boost lunch. And it's really interesting because these methods that we came up with, they really span across retail food in general, I think, and not just convenience stores. For example, one of the key ways was to offer more chicken. We found that 60% of customers said that they would be likely to order chicken at least occasionally during lunch from retailers, and that goes for C-store operators and grocery retailers as well, quite frankly. And this is when it comes to made-to-order food service or grab-and-go, things like that. Also, potatoes are really popular. More than 80% of consumers said they'd be likely to order fries or potato wedges during lunch, which is huge. And behind fries were mashed potatoes and baked potatoes, and those were ahead of all other options like mac and cheese. So besides those specific items as well, obviously variety is key, and that goes with other day parts too. For C-store specifically, though, low prices is really key for the lunch day part. More than half of customers we found actually said that they rarely visit convenience stores for food service occasions because prices are too high. And that's a big increase compared to 2 years ago. And that's pretty jarring, specifically when talking about the constant LTOs and specials that C-store retailers release for food service. It still appears that there's a price problem. And then fresh is also another thing. As we spoke about on this Facebook Live last week, consumers still have the perception of C-store food just being roller grill, and operators are trying to change that perspective, and they're trying to offer more fresh items, and doing that could help boost it as well. So there's that and many other options as well, and including tightening the menu, just offering less items. If anyone watched ESPN, they had a really cool 30 for 30 on Bruce Lee the other day, and he has a really cool quote. He used to say that he's afraid of the person who practices one kick 1,000 times compared to the person who practices 1,000 kicks once. And that's really interesting because focus on one thing and be really good at that one thing, that could attract more attention. So in the C-store space, you have Casey's, who specializes in their pizza, or Parker's, who specializes in their fried chicken programs. These chains are basically synonymous with those food items, and they gain a lot of traction during lunch and other day parts too. And then finally, just spreading the word about your food service programs. So many operators who we've spoken to in the C-store space don't capitalize on social media the way they should be doing. A lot of them use Facebook, but they don't really expand beyond that. There are so many other alternative means of social media they could be using to promote their programs, like Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and Snapchat. Today's consumers, especially younger consumers, we're on our phones all of the time. So if you're scrolling through a feed of some sort and see that 7-Eleven has a new pizza program, it might incline you to go purchase the food for lunch. So those things combined, operators are certainly looking to give lunch a boost.
So what I'd like everybody to weigh in on is the future of lunch, not only in C-stores, but certainly in grocery stores that have grocerants and so on, as we continue to the trend of working at home more. And clearly from everything that I'm reading, that's going to be something that happens. I mean, CNN, Jeff Zucker, my old boss has closed CNN until January 1st, basically saying, don't come to work from home, whether you're a reporter, producer, and so on. And I think we're going to see more of that. So what happens to lunch? I mean, I can argue both sides with myself. One says, people are going to be working at home; they're not going to go out for lunch. Then I could argue that people are working from home, so they need a break. They want to go out and
Mhm.
grab something for lunch. What do you guys think? Whether it's a C store or a grocerant in a supermarket, what's the future of
Yeah,
lunch?
I think it's going to be both. Like you said, I mean, I've worked from home for years, and you already like have fatigue from making 3 meals a day.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that people are going to settle into a new rhythm, and they're going to want to, and grocery stores and C stores might be the place that they choose. They might not go out to a restaurant for lunch if they're working from home, but they might think, well, I'll go out and pick up some milk, and while I'm there, at the store, get something, more takeout friendly for lunch.
And Kat, what do you
Yeah,
think of John? Yeah.
yeah, just to Jen's point, I think, I have shifted my grocery shopping to during the week midday, as opposed to mainly going on the weekends. And
I don't think you're supposed to say that in front of John.
well, it's my lunch hour.
Okay.
Taking my lunch hour. I said
Okay.
midday, lunch
Midday.
hour.
Okay. Okay.
And to Jen's point is when I'm there, I do look for something that I can grab and eat for lunch when I get home. I'm already, as I said, taking my lunch hour to go shopping. And so I think that retailers have a real opportunity there to focus on lunch when maybe they didn't. Maybe they focused more on the evening day part, trying to capture people on their commutes home. And I think now lunch might factor in a little bit. And I think it will probably grow once schools get back in session and kids' schedules kind of get back to normal. So if the kids are out of the house, but you're still working from home, I think you're going to be more likely to step out midday than if you still have kids at home and they want to either go with you or, are super demanding on what their order is going to be.
And John, in New York, I mean, New Yorkers are used to going out for every meal.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of lunch is?
Well, with COVID came along, it brought things back to grocery that had gone for, a long time, right? They were on a full court press on dinner because they'd long lost lunch and they'd long lost breakfast really to their competitors in the food service space. So I've just been kind of, reflecting on, the experience. Like New York is, you're famous for your delis. You got a guy in the back, he's slicing everything up for you.
Right.
You go to the stores now, everything's pre-sliced and kind of put in these cases where the, fresh prepared foods used to be. So that's been a big change. But I think, look, we'll see when the restaurants get back to business here in July or a couple of weeks, how things are going to be. It's been takeout already. For me, we're not cooking 3 times a day. We're cooking it, in the evening, and then we're eating the leftovers for lunch. So, I think that's how people are doing it. For supermarkets is a good opportunity. And, the question is how long it's going to last. And I would say, people start going back to offices. People kind of dig in for the long term, being home at work, like Kat mentioned, and the kids go back to school, that's the time they'll take a break.
So, John, let's talk about how supermarket retailers have really responded to the lootings, to the riots. I mean, we've all seen the pictures of, a Whole Foods being boarded up or a Gilson's being boarded up. How overall are retailers responding to this?
Well, I think Jenn wrote a good piece on this yesterday, so I'm going to kick it to Jenn.
Well, you kind of touched on this, Phil, as some good news at the beginning. We've got on Friday, there were just a slew of major retailers who came out and said, we're going to put, some pretty major money behind, racial unity, equality, diversity, launching different programs around that. Like you said, Walmart was 100 million, Target is 10 million, Kroger 5 million. And the message is, some of the CEOs like Rodney McMullen of Kroger communicated this message through Facebook and other social media platforms. And it's really, we stand with you. We see you, we hear you, we're with you. So, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how these diversity programs evolve and you know, how we can really make a difference.
You know,
And
and one thing I would add to that is that, you know, it's unusual. I mean, at least until a few years ago when social media got such a big deal, it was a little bit unusual to see retailers kind of take a stand on social issues the way they have to today. And, you know, I mean, you just like this year has just been so crazy. You know, you had to respond to the initial COVID thing and then all the, in every single of those messages. Rodney McMullen's been on TV more than, you know, anybody I've seen this year, making an announcement about this or that or the other thing. You know, the other thing I point out, you know, obviously the workforces of the retailers, you know, heavy minority and Black representation on their workforces, they've got to come through, you know, very genuinely to them to have them understand.
And also, Phil, you touched on it in the beginning. You know, there are also retailers like Hy-Vee are volunteering or are donating volunteer hours. So they're allowing their associates to get out and volunteer for the causes that they find important to them. And Hy-Vee operates in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, so they did have, obviously they've been affected by what's going on, and they had said that they've already had their associates out in the community handing out food, snacks, and helping with the cleanup. So they've already kind of started that million hour donation there.
So I think that's good news, but Jen, we've got to throw it to you for some more good news before we end today's broadcast. And again, just a reminder, you can check out all of the Winsight Live segments, if you would, or discussions that we've had on Winsight Grocery Live, on Facebook, on the Winsight Grocery Business website, on Supermarket Guru Facebook, and on Supermarket Guru Live as well, and on CSP Facebook. So Jen, wrap us up with some more good news.
Yeah, I really think that the best news, you know, late last week and early this week is retailers really looking to make a change and elevating the discussion around racial equality. So with all of these donations, and then I've also been reading about the 15% pledge, and I've reached out to them and hope to write a story on that later this week. But it's to encourage retailers like, you know, they've mentioned specifically Target, Sephora, Whole Foods, urging them to, because 15% of the population is Black, to devote 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned products made by Black-owned companies.
Well, what's interesting to me is if we go back about 25 years or 30 years, Jesse Jackson with the Rainbow Coalition tried to do exactly that. Where they would go to supermarkets and they'd go to, you know, a lot of retailers and basically say, and I think the percentage was exactly the same then, 15%, that what we would like is 15% of your advertising to go to Black media, 15% of your money to go to Black-owned banks, 15% of your shelf space. So not a lot has changed over the past 25 or 30 years. And it's a shame that, you know, we have to revisit it now. But yeah, looking forward to seeing that story, Jen. So to everybody who's joined us, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And until then, be safe and be happy.